loves, and welcome back to Bedtime Stories with Mommy J. And we're continuing with The Day My Butt Would Cycle, and it's based on a true story by Andy Griffiths. And we are actually on chapter 2C. All right, so let's begin. Remember that Zach met a professional butt catcher. If God had meant us to catch butts, she said, patting her butt blaster, she wouldn't have given us these to kill them with. So you're a butt fighter, she said. What's your name? Said Zach. Eleanor. I'm Zach, he said, holding out his hand. She ignored it. Let's get out of here, she said. It stinks. She waved her gun toward the pipe she jumped down from. Can you get up there? I think so, said Zach. Let's go then, she said. She turned, ran toward the wall, and in one graceful move jumped and landed back up on the ledge of the drain. Zach went as far back as he could and began to run. He jumped, reached for the lip of the drain, and missed. He put his hands on the ledge and tried to pull himself up. He got his head and shoulders into the pipe, but it was hard to get a good grip on the slippery concrete. Eleanor knelt down and grabbed Zach's pajama top. With one mighty heave, she swung him up over the drain lip and into the pipe. She did it with such force that Zach went sliding along the pipe through the darkness and shot out the other end where he originally come in. Eleanor was right behind them. Come on, she said as they emerged, blinking into the light. My buttmobile is hidden in a park not far from here. You've got a buttmobile? Said Zach. What kind? A 370 TZ. With retractable wings? He said. Of course, she said. Handles all terrain, even goes underwater. Wow, said Zach. He looked at the girl. She couldn't have been much older than him, and yet she already had her own buttmobile. The girl took one of her butt guns from her holster and handed it to him. Here, she said, you better take this. Zach looked at the gun and felt his pulse quickening. It was a 4502 LL. The double L stood for laxative launcher, state of the art. It could fire up to 5 capsules of pure laxative per second. And a laxative make you go poopy. Are you sure, he said. Of course I am, she said. What's the matter? Are you scared? No, said Zach quickly. Up until now, he only had read about guns like this. He never dreamed he'd ever actually get to hold one. He held the gun up to his eye, put his finger on the trigger, and took aim through the telescopic viewfinder. Suddenly, the gun jolted backwards in his hand, and a volley of capsules poured out of its neck. You idiot, said Eleanor. Are you trying to get us killed? I'm sorry, he said. It was an accident. You'll have to be more careful than that if you want to stay alive, she said. Let's go, and keep your head down. I can't see any butts, but that doesn't mean they're not around. Zach nodded, his face burning with embarrassment. He knew he was no butt fighter, but it was too late to back out now. Crouching low, Zach followed the girl through the long grass by the side of the creek. Soon they reached the edge of the large park. Eleanor pointed to a weeping willow on the other side. Its thick branches drooped all the way to the ground. That's where the buttmobile is hidden, she said. Let's go. Zach nodded. They were about halfway across the park when they heard a weird, high-pitched squealing noise above them. What's that? Said Zach. Get down, said Eleanor, pushing him roughly to the ground. A butt was over their heads and splattered onto the ground a few yards in front of them. Kamikaze butts, said Eleanor, pointing to a large dead tree behind them. Its branches lined with hundreds of butts, each wearing a red band. We're going to have to make a run for it. She sprinted off across the park toward the buttmobile. Zach ran after her. The butts whizzed and whined overhead, exploding all around them. Finally, they made it to the willow tree. Eleanor parted the curtains of the branches to reveal the buttmobile. Zach's eyes bulged. The 370 TZ was an amazing machine. It resembled an armored tank, except it was as if the top half had been removed and replaced with 2 large plastic domes. Also, unlike a tank, it had a long yellow nose out the front of it, tapering to a very sharp point with a BH007 written along the side in red. But the thing that really caught Zach's eye were the 3 rocket thrusters mounted at the rear. This would make the buttmobile capable of flying at least twice the speed of wind, easily enough to hunt down or, if necessary, escape from the biggest and meanest of butts. Zach was so amazed at the sight of the buttmobile that he forgot about the butt gun in his hand. Suddenly, another volley of capsules sprayed out of the neck and onto the trunk of the tree. For a moment, nothing happened, and then Zach saw the most incredible thing he had ever seen. Every single leaf fell off the tree, leaving just the skeleton of branches and the buttmobile completely exposed. Zach blinked and shook his head. They were powerful laxative, that was for sure. You idiot, yelled Eleanor. Now look what you've done. It was an accident, said Zach, but he was drowned out by the sound of the butt slamming on into the side of the Buttmobile and exploding. Cover me, said Eleanor, leaping onto the top of the Buttmobile. She knelt down, grabbed hold of the entry hatch, and pulled it open, but a butt was heading straight for her. Zach heard it, spun around, took aim, and fired. It was a direct hit. The butt released a volcanic geyser of brown liquid and then blew apart completely, covering both Zach and Eleanor with something very similar in consistency to chocolate mousse, except much, much stinkier. I did it, Zach said to Eleanor, jumping up and down. I did it. That's great, said Eleanor, lowering herself down into the hatch. But what are you going to do about that? She pointed behind Zach and then disappeared into the Buttmobile. Zach looked around, and what he saw made his stomach drop. An enormous boulder was rolling down a hill toward them. Only this wasn't no ordinary boulder. It was a butt boulder. Hundreds of butts clustered together, hurtling across the grass, crushing saplings like matchsticks. Zach stared at it. The butt boulder was less than 50 yards away. That's half of a football field. Well, don't just stand there, you idiot, yelled Eleanor, pointing her head back up through the hatch. Jump in! Zach took one last look at the boulder, turned, and with an almost superhuman effort, jumped straight into the Buttmobile, pulling the hatch shut behind him. Eleanor was in the front dome of the Buttmobile, strapping herself into one of the pilot seats. Hold on, she yelled, firing butt thrusters. But before Zach had a chance to grab hold of anything, the Buttmobile roared into life. Suddenly, he was staggering backward as they shot up into the sky. Zach hit the back wall of the Buttmobile and fell sideways, his face pressed against the plastic dome. He saw the butt boulder smash into the willow tree and burst apart, sending the butts flying into the air. They quickly regrouped and began chasing the Buttmobile. They're after us, Zach yelled. The Buttmobile suddenly dived. This time, Zach went flying forward and fell heavily on the controls in the front dorm, landing with his face pressed hard against the windshield. You idiot, screamed Eleanor. Why aren't you strapped in? I didn't have time, he said. But Eleanor wasn't listening. She was too busy concentrating on the huge mass of butts speeding toward them. There must have been at least 500 of them. A big, angry, wasp-like crowd of butts. Uh-oh, she said. Hold on, we're going to have to corkscrew. What does that mean, said Zach. Eleanor pulled down hard on her steering wheel. The Buttmobile started looping in a series of smaller and smaller and smaller circles. Zach had been feeling sick already, but this was the last straw. He threw up in a corkscrew pattern all over the controls, the windshield, and the door. Eleanor was frantically trying to wipe a clean space on the windshield to see through when Zach slipped and fell on top of her. Eleanor's head hit the left side of the Buttmobile with a thump, and she slumped in her chair, completely knocked out. With nobody at the controls and the Buttmobile flipping upside down, and Zach fell backward and landed against the hatch with such force that it sprang open. As Zach fell, he grabbed the edge of the hatch and held on for his life. Zach's heart was pounding as he took stock of his predicament. He was hanging from an upside-down, out-of-control Buttmobile with a posse of angry butts hot on his tail. Within moments, they were at his feet, and at the head of the pack were two butts that he recognized only too well. Greetings, my dear boy, said the first butt. What a great pleasure to see you again. Don't you agree, Maurice? Oh, yes, your highness, said Maurice, smiling dourly. It is indeed a great, great pleasure. And that's the end of chapter 2. I'm so happy we're going to go on to chapter 3. All right, everybody. Just to remember that I'm doing this because it was tradition for me to read bedtime stories to my boys who I have not had any communication with due to their father alienating them from me. But I love you so much, everybody. And I hope you guys have sweet dreams. And remember to brush your teeth and say your prayers. Good night. Hugs and kisses. Mwah.